It was pouring rain in Seattle when Liam gave his last $20 bill to a woman sobbing on the curb. He thought he was just comforting a broken stranger. He had no idea the woman whose tears he wiped away was about to control his entire future. The rain in Seattle that Tuesday morning wasn't just a drizzle. It was a torrential, freezing downpour that felt like tiny needles against the skin. Liam Gallagher stood under the awning of a small independent coffee shop on 4th Avenue, nervously checking his watch. It was 8:15 a.m. He had exactly 45 minutes to make it to the towering glass monolith of Axiom Global Headquarters for the final round of interviews. Liam was 32, a single father, and hanging by a thread. 3 years ago, his wife, Sarah, had passed away after a brutal, drawn-out battle with leukemia. The medical bills had devoured their savings, his 401k, and the equity in their modest home. Now it was just him and his 6-year-old daughter, Chloe. They lived in a cramped, drafty apartment in a sketchy part of Bellevue, and Liam was 3 months behind on rent. This job, senior project director at Axiom, wasn't just a career move. It was a lifeline. It came with a 6-figure salary, comprehensive health insurance, and a signing bonus that would pull his family back from the edge of the abyss. He clutched his cheap black umbrella and took a deep breath, preparing to step out into the deluge. He was wearing his only good suit, a navy 2-piece he had carefully dry-cleaned the week before. Just as he stepped onto the wet pavement, a flash of beige caught his eye. Sitting on a wet, wrought-iron city bench, completely exposed to the relentless rain, was a woman. Commuters in dark coats hurried past her, heads down, actively ignoring the scene. She was shivering violently, her knees pulled up to her chest. She wore what looked like a ruined Burberry trench coat, now plastered to her body, and one scuffed Christian Louboutin heel. The other was nowhere to be seen. Her head was buried in her hands, and her shoulders heaved with ragged, heavy sobs. Liam hesitated. The clock in his head was ticking loudly. "Walk away," his survival instinct screamed. "You can't afford to be late. You can't afford to get your suit ruined." Think of Chloe. But as the woman gasped for air, a sharp, ragged sound cutting through the noise of the traffic, Liam froze. He recognized that sound. It was the exact sound Sarah used to make during her midnight panic attacks when the chemotherapy became too much to bear. It was the sound of absolute, soul-crushing despair. "Damn it," Liam muttered under his breath. He walked over, his cheap umbrella providing a small dome of shelter over her trembling frame. "Mom?" he asked gently. She flinched, pulling away as if expecting a blow. When she looked up, Liam's breath caught slightly. Despite the mascara running down her cheeks and her soaked, tangled dark hair, she possessed a sharp, striking kind of beauty. But her eyes, ice blue and red-rimmed, were entirely hollow. "Go away," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Please, just leave me alone." "I can't do that," Liam said softly. He noticed a shattered iPhone lying in the puddle near her bare foot. "You're freezing. You're going to catch pneumonia." "I don't care," she choked out, a fresh wave of tears spilling over. "It's gone. Everything is gone. He took everything." Liam didn't ask who he was or what was taken. He knew that when someone is in the middle of a panic attack, logic doesn't work. Only grounding does. Without a second thought, Liam took off his suit jacket, the jacket he desperately needed for his interview, and draped it over her shivering shoulders. "What are you doing?" she asked, bewildered, pulling the warm fabric around her. "My name is Liam," he said, crouching down so he was at eye level with her, ignoring the icy puddle soaking through the knees of his dress pants. "And I'm not leaving you here." I know what it feels like when the floor falls out from under you. Just breathe with me. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. To his surprise, she listened. For 10 minutes, while the city rushed aggressively around them, Liam stayed kneeling in the rain, guiding a complete stranger through a breathing exercise. Slowly, the hyperventilation stopped. Her shivering subsided slightly beneath the warmth of his jacket. "Thank you," she whispered, wiping her face. I was locked out. My fiancé, we had an argument. He locked me out of the penthouse. He took my purse, my keys. I dropped my phone and it broke. I've been walking for an hour. I didn't know where to go." Liam felt a surge of anger toward this nameless fiancé, but he kept his voice steady. "Do you have somewhere safe to go? A friend? A hotel?" "I know a hotel where they know me," she said quietly. "But I have no money for a cab." Liam reached into his soaked trousers and pulled out his wallet. Inside was a single, crisp $20 bill. It was his emergency cash, meant to buy Chloe a small birthday cake later that evening. He didn't hesitate. He pulled it out, folded it, and pressed it into her cold hand. "Here," he said. "Take this." She looked at the $20 bill, a strange, unreadable expression crossing her face. I can't take your money. You've already ruined your clothes for me." "Take it," Liam insisted, with a warm, sad smile. "Consider it a loan. And keep the jacket until you get inside." He stood up, handing her his umbrella as well. "Wait," she called out, as he turned away, the rain instantly plastering his dress shirt to his back. "How will I return your jacket? What's your last name?" "Just pass the kindness on," Liam called back over his shoulder, already breaking into a sprint. "Stay safe." He checked his watch. 8:42 a.m. He was going to be late. By the time Liam arrived at the Axiom Global headquarters, he was a disaster. He had run 7 blocks in the freezing rain without a jacket or an umbrella. His white dress shirt was completely transparent, his tie was ruined, and the knees of his trousers were stained with grey city grit. He dripped his way into the pristine, marble-floored lobby, earning disgusted glares from the security guards and the flawlessly dressed receptionists. "Liam Gallagher," he panted, approaching the front desk. "I'm here for an 8:45 interview with Mr. Hale." The receptionist eyed him as if he were something scrape off the bottom of a shoe. "Take the elevator to the 40th floor, Mr. Gallagher, though I doubt Mr. Hale will appreciate you tracking water into the executive carpets." Liam swallowed his pride, took the elevator up, and sat in the waiting room. He tried desperately to dry his hair with rough paper towels from the restroom, but the damage was done. When the heavy mahogany doors finally opened, Gregory Hale, a slick, arrogant vice president of operations, wearing a custom Tom Ford suit, stepped out. Hale took one look at Liam and openly sneered. "Mr. Gallagher, I presume?" Hale drawled, not offering his hand. "Yes, sir. I apologize for my appearance. There was an emergency on the way here, and—" "I don't care," Hale interrupted, turning on his heel and walking into his expansive office. Liam followed awkwardly. "At Axiom, we value preparedness, foresight, and above all, image. If you cannot manage to cross the street without looking like a drowned rat, how can I trust you to manage a $50 million development project?" For the next 20 minutes, Hale didn't ask Liam a single question about his impressive portfolio, his 10 years of architectural experience, or his innovative urban planning designs. Instead, Hale berated him. He insulted Liam's pedigree, mocked his current period of unemployment, and systematically tore down every shred of dignity Liam had left. "You're a relic, Gallagher," Hale concluded, leaning back in his leather chair. "A bleeding heart who couldn't cut it in his own firm, so he comes begging to us. We need sharks here. We need killers. You? Your prey. The interview is over. Have security escort you out." Liam walked out of the Axiom building feeling utterly hollow. The rain had stopped, but the chill had settled deep into his bones. He had lost. He had thrown away his family's future for a stranger. When he picked Chloe up from school that afternoon, he forced a bright smile onto his face. He used the last of his loose change to buy her a cheap cupcake from a corner bodega, sticking a single candle in it. "Did you get the job, Daddy?" Chloe asked, her big brown eyes looking up at him as she chewed on the frosting. Liam hugged her tightly, burying his face in her hair so she wouldn't see his tears. "Not this one, sweetie, but something better is coming, I promise." It was a lie, and he knew it. Over the next 5 days, Liam sank into a deep depression. He received a final eviction warning. He began packing their belongings into cardboard boxes, trying to figure out which homeless shelter in Seattle was safest for a young girl. Then, on Tuesday morning, exactly 1 week after the incident in the rain, his phone rang. The caller ID read Axiom Global, Executive Suite. Liam answered, his heart pounding. "Hello." "Mr. Gallagher," a crisp, professional female voice said. "My name is Beatrice. I am the executive assistant to the CEO of Axiom Global. You are required to be at our headquarters at 10 a.m. sharp today." I think there's been a mistake," Liam stammered. "Mr. Hale already rejected my application." "This is not regarding Mr. Hale, sir. A private car is waiting downstairs for you. Please do not keep the CEO waiting." The line went dead. Bewildered, Liam looked out his small, dirty window. Sitting on the curb of his rundown street was a sleek, jet-black Mercedes Maybach. Wearing his only other semi-presentable outfit, a pair of dark jeans and a neat button-down sweater, Liam got into the car. He was driven in silence back to the massive glass tower. This time, he bypassed the snobby receptionists. A towering security guard met him at the door and escorted him to a private, fingerprint-secured elevator. They bypassed the 40th floor entirely, rocketing up to the 60th floor, the penthouse suite. The elevator doors glided open, revealing an office that looked like a modern art museum. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a dizzying, panoramic view of the Seattle skyline and the Puget Sound. "Right this way, Mr. Gallagher." Beatrice, a sharply dressed older woman, guided him toward a massive set of double doors. She opened them and stepped aside. Liam walked in. The office was vast, dominated by a massive marble desk, and sitting behind that desk, typing furiously on a sleek laptop, was a woman. She was dressed impeccably in a tailored white power suit. Her dark hair was pulled back into a severe, elegant chignon. She exuded power, wealth, and an almost terrifying level of authority. As she looked up, Liam felt all the air leave his lungs. It was her, the woman from the rain. The ice-blue eyes were no longer red and hollow. They were sharp, focused, and piercing. She stood up, her posture perfect, completely devoid of the shattered vulnerability he had witnessed a week ago. "Hello, Liam," she said, her voice smooth and commanding. Liam was paralyzed. You're the CEO of Axiom." "Vivian Sterling," she said, stepping around the desk. She walked over to a small mahogany side table. Sitting on it, neatly folded, was Liam's cheap navy suit jacket. Next to it rested his $20 bill, framed in a small, elegant glass display. "I don't understand," Liam breathed, his mind spinning. "You were on the street. You said your fiancé locked you out." "He did," Vivian said, her expression hardening into something cold and dangerous. "My ex-fiancé, Richard, was also my chief financial officer. Last Tuesday, I discovered he had been embezzling millions through shell companies, colluding with 2 members of my own board of directors to force me out of my own company. When I confronted him in our home, he turned violent. He took my phone, my bag, and threw me out into the street to break me. He knew I suffered from panic attacks. He wanted me to be found wandering the streets, looking like a madwoman, so the board could declare me mentally unfit. She stepped closer to Liam, her eyes softening just a fraction. And his plan would have worked perfectly, Liam. I was spiraling. I was ready to give up, until a stranger in a cheap suit sacrificed his own career to sit in the freezing rain and help me breathe. Liam swallowed hard. I had an interview that day. With Gregory Hale. "I know," Vivian said. She picked up a remote from her desk and clicked a button. A large screen on the wall flickered to life. It was a security feed of Gregory Hale packing his belongings into a cardboard box, flanked by 2 large security guards. He looked furious and humiliated. "Mr. Hale is no longer with this company," Vivian stated coldly. "I fired him an hour ago. Anyone who cannot recognize basic human decency and loyalty is too stupid to work for me." She turned back to Liam, her demeanor shifting into intense, calculated business mode. "I didn't bring you here to give you the project manager job, Liam." "You didn't?" Liam asked, feeling a sudden knot of dread in his stomach. "No," Vivian said, leaning against the edge of her desk. "I looked into your background. I know about your late wife, Sarah. I know about your daughter, Chloe. I know about the medical debt and the eviction notice. I know that you are a man who fights for his family and protects those who are defenseless." She locked eyes with him. "The board is holding an emergency gala this Friday. Richard has convinced the shareholders that I am emotionally unstable and unfit to lead following our sudden breakup. He expects me to show up alone, broken, and unhinged. I intend to walk in there with a stable, unimpeachable, fiercely loyal new partner, a man whose moral compass is completely unquestionable." Liam took a step back, his brain struggling to process her words. "What are you saying?" "I am offering you a contract, Mr. Gallagher," Vivian Sterling said, her voice dropping to a low, serious register. "Play the role of my new fiancé. Stand by my side. Help me dismantle Richard and his cronies from the inside, and act as my personal executive consultant. In exchange, I will clear every single cent of your debt today. I will buy you a house in Medina, and I will ensure your daughter's future is secured for the rest of her life." She extended her hand, her ice-blue eyes burning with a mix of desperation and ruthless determination. "Do we have a deal?" Liam stared at the outstretched hand of Vivian Sterling. His mind raced, calculating the sheer absurdity of the situation. He was an unemployed, grieving widower facing eviction. She was a billionaire CEO fighting a corporate coup. Yet the desperation in her ice-blue eyes was entirely real. She wasn't looking for an employee. She was looking for a shield. "I need to know Chloe is safe," Liam said, his voice remarkably steady despite the adrenaline flooding his system. "If this Richard guy is violent, I won't put my daughter in the crossfire." Vivian nodded, withdrawing her hand to pull a thick, leather-bound folder from her desk. "I anticipated that. By 3 o'clock today, you and Chloe will be relocated to my secondary property in Medina. It's a fortified estate with 24-hour private security. Richard doesn't know it exists. It was purchased under a blind trust. Your debts are currently being wired to your creditors, and Beatrice is setting up a private tutor for your daughter." Liam exhaled a long, shaky breath. "And my role?" "You are Liam Gallagher, my fiercely intelligent, devastatingly charming new fiancé," Vivian said smoothly. "We met 6 months ago at a charity gala in Portland. We kept it quiet because of my high profile. Following my sudden realization of Richard's betrayal, I ended my previous engagement and ran to you. You are my anchor. I don't know the first thing about high society galas or corporate warfare, Liam admitted. You know how to read blueprints, and you know how to stay calm in a storm, Vivian countered. I'll handle the board. I just need you to handle Richard. Make him look small. By Wednesday afternoon, Liam's life was unrecognizable. He and Chloe were ushered into a sprawling, modern mansion on the shores of Lake Washington. Chloe ran through the massive halls, her giggles echoing off the Venetian plaster walls, entirely oblivious to the dangerous corporate chess game her father had just entered. That evening, Vivian arrived at the estate for a rehearsal. She swapped her power suit for a cashmere sweater and dark jeans, looking startlingly normal. The tension between them was palpable as they sat in the vast living room, reviewing flashcards of each other's lives created by Beatrice. Your father, Thomas Sterling, founded Axiom, Liam read from a card, looking up at her. He passed away 5 years ago. Richard Harrington, your CFO, was his protégé. Vivian's jaw tightened. Richard played the loyal soldier perfectly. When my father died, the board circled like vultures. Richard stood by me, helped me solidify my position as CEO. I mistook his ambition for loyalty. I agreed to marry him because it pleased the shareholders. I didn't love him, Liam. It was a merger. She looked away, staring into the fireplace. Finding out he was draining the company's pension funds to finance offshore accounts. It didn't just break my heart. It broke my father's legacy. Just then, Chloe padded into the living room, wearing her pajamas and carrying a plastic, rhinestone-studded tiara. She walked straight up to the billionaire CEO and held it out. You look sad, the 6-year-old stated matter-of-factly. Daddy says when girls are sad, they need to remember they are queens. Vivian froze. The ruthless corporate titan looked completely out of her depth. Slowly, she reached out and took the cheap plastic tiara. A genuine, unguarded smile broke across her face, softening her sharp features completely. Thank you, Chloe. I will wear it with pride. Liam watched the exchange, feeling a strange tug in his chest. The Ice Queen was thawing. We have a problem, Beatrice announced, interrupting the moment as she strode into the room holding a tablet. Richard has hired private investigators. They've been tailing Liam's old apartment and have traced the security detail's movements. They know you're together. Richard is feeding a narrative to Arthur Pendleton, the head of the board, that Liam is a con artist who manipulated you during a mental breakdown. Vivian stood up, placing the plastic tiara carefully on the coffee table. The softness vanished, replaced by calculated steel. Then we give them a show. Beatrice, book the finest table at Canlis for tomorrow night. Alert the paparazzi. If Richard wants to see my mental breakdown, I'll show him exactly how crazily in love I am. The dinner at Canlis on Thursday night was a masterclass in deception. Dressed in a bespoke Tom Ford tuxedo that Beatrice had rushed-tailored, Liam felt like an imposter. But when Vivian walked down the restaurant's famous staircase in a breathtaking emerald silk gown, Liam didn't have to fake his reaction. He was stunned. As cameras flashed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Vivian leaned across the candlelit table, her hand resting softly over his. "Smile, darling," she murmured, her lips barely moving. "They're taking pictures from the valet stand." "It's hard to smile when I feel like a deer in the headlights," Liam whispered back, offering a dazzling, forced grin. "Just look at me," Vivian said softly. "Look at me the way you looked at me in the rain, like I'm the only person in the world who matters right now." Liam met her ice-blue eyes. He remembered the shivering, broken woman on the bench. He saw the fierce, resilient woman sitting in front of him now. Without thinking, he turned his hand over, intertwining his fingers with hers, and gently brushed his thumb over her knuckles. Vivian's breath hitched slightly, a microscopic break in her flawless armor. For a fleeting second, the cameras, Richard, and the corporate espionage faded away. It wasn't just a performance anymore. Friday night arrived with the force of a hurricane. The Fairmont Olympic Hotel ballroom was packed with Seattle's elite, Axiom shareholders, and predatory journalists. The emergency gala was ostensibly a charity fundraiser, but everyone in the room knew it was a corporate tribunal. Richard Harrington stood near an elaborate ice sculpture, nursing a scotch. He was a classically handsome man with slicked-back blonde hair and a predatory smirk. Next to him was Arthur Pendleton, an octogenarian billionaire who held the swing vote on the Axiom board. "It's a tragedy, Arthur," Richard said loudly, ensuring the surrounding investors could hear. "Vivian simply hasn't been the same since Thomas died. The paranoia. And now, picking up an unemployed architect off the street and claiming they're engaged? It's a textbook psychiatric break. For the good of Axiom, we must invoke the incapacity clause tonight." Richard stepped up to the microphone on the grand stage. The string quartet stopped playing, and the room plunged into a tense, whispering silence. "As CFO, it is my heavy duty to address the rumors regarding our CEO, Vivian Sterling." Suddenly, the heavy, gilded oak doors of the ballroom swung open with a resounding crash. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Vivian Sterling walked in, radiating absolute, terrifying power in a tailored crimson evening gown that screamed dominance. By her side, looking every inch the aristocratic powerhouse, was Liam Gallagher. His posture was perfect, his jaw set, his hand resting supportively on the small of her back. Richard's smug smile faltered. "Vivian," he said into the microphone, recovering quickly. "We weren't sure you were well enough to attend." "I have never been better, Richard," Vivian projected, her voice ringing clear across the silent ballroom. She and Liam walked directly toward the stage, stopping right in front of Arthur Pendleton. "Arthur, allow me to introduce my fiancé, Liam Gallagher, formerly a senior project director at Kincaid Designs, and now my personal executive consultant." Richard scoffed loudly, stepping down from the stage. "Don't insult our intelligence, Vivian. I ran his background check. He's 3 months behind on rent, unemployed, and drowning in medical debt. He's a gold digger preying on your fragile state." Murmurs erupted through the crowd as board members exchanged nervous glances. Liam stepped forward. He didn't raise his voice, but his quiet authority commanded the room. "It's true," Liam said, locking eyes with Richard. "My late wife's battle with cancer wiped out my savings. I make no apologies for prioritizing my family's survival. But while you were busy running background checks on my poverty, Mr. Harrington, I was running background checks on your architectural developments." Richard's face drained of color. "What?" Liam turned to Arthur Pendleton, reaching into his tuxedo jacket to produce a sleek, black USB drive. "Arthur, I reviewed the $40 million Evergreen Harbor development project that Richard championed last quarter. As an urban planner, I noticed the zoning permits didn't match the soil density reports. The land is entirely unbuildable. It's a toxic brownfield site." "That's a lie," Richard spat, taking a step toward Liam. "It gets worse, Arthur," Vivian interjected smoothly. "With Liam's architectural findings, my private auditors dug into the financial records. The shell corporation that sold that worthless land to Axiom at a 400% markup is registered in the Cayman Islands. The sole beneficiary of that offshore account is Richard Harrington." The ballroom erupted into chaos. Flashbulbs went off in a blinding strobe effect. "This is slander," Richard roared, his charming facade completely disintegrating into a panicked rage. "She's insane! She's making this up!" "The SEC doesn't think so," Liam noted calmly, nodding toward the ballroom entrance. 4 uniformed Seattle police officers, accompanied by 2 federal agents, pushed their way through the crowd of elite billionaires. They walked directly up to Richard. "Richard Harrington, you're under arrest for corporate fraud and embezzlement," one of the agents stated. "Place your hands behind your back." The high society crowd watched in stunned silence as the golden boy of Axiom Global was dragged out in disgrace. Arthur Pendleton stared at the USB drive, then let out a wheezing chuckle. "Well, Vivian, it seems you have impeccable taste in men. Mr. Gallagher, welcome to Axiom." An hour later, the crisis was officially over. The board had unanimously reaffirmed Vivian's position. Vivian and Liam slipped away from the flashing cameras, stepping out onto the hotel's sprawling stone balcony. The Seattle rain had started again, a gentle, misty drizzle casting a halo around the streetlights. "The contract is complete, Liam," Vivian whispered, her corporate armor fading to reveal the vulnerable woman beneath. "Tomorrow, you'll have the deed to the Medina estate, the trust fund for Chloe, and a permanent position. You don't have to pretend to be my fiancée anymore." Liam looked at her. He took a step closer, the space between them suddenly electric. "What if I don't want to stop pretending?" he asked, his voice low in the cool night air. Vivian's breath hitched. A slow, incredibly beautiful smile spread across her face as she reached out, her fingers gently tracing the lapel of his tuxedo. "Then I suppose," Vivian murmured, stepping into his arms, "we should start renegotiating our contract." A single act of kindness, a ruined suit and a $20 bill, rewrote 2 destinies in the pouring rain. Liam Gallagher saved Vivian Sterling from losing her empire, and in return, she pulled his family from the brink of ruin. Their story proves that true power isn't found in boardrooms or bank accounts, but in the quiet, unexpected courage of helping a broken stranger.